Thank you for choosing ColorSeal Pro. We're going to review your do-it-yourself package that you purchased, the contents of it, and we're also going to review all materials and supplies required to clean, prep, and color seal the area that you're doing. In your do-it-yourself package, you'll receive a DVD, an instructional video as to how to apply the product and prep the area, a Yorker top, which is used to apply the bead, and an applicator brush, which is used to spread the ColorSeal. Also, you'll receive an appropriate amount of ColorSeal to do the area. It'll either come in an 8-ounce bottle or 16-ounce bottle, or a combination of, and the appropriate amount of deep cleaner, which is called our Step 1 Deep Cleaner, used to clean and prep the surface prior to applying ColorSeal. Now that we've reviewed the contents of the do-it-yourself package that you've purchased, these are obviously items that are included. Now we also have items that are required to do the job that are not included in the package that you've purchased. These items are a scotch brite pad, which will be used at the end for buffing, terry cloth towels, which will also be used at the end of the job for buffing, and a grout scrub brush. We sell this brush online on our website, or any type of grout scrub brush can be used, and a mop and a bucket. Here we have optional items. These items are not necessary or required to complete the job, but they're more luxury items than anything. For example, the Doodlebug swivel pad holder. You attach a broomstick, you attach the white swivel pad, and from a standing position, you're able to clean the tiles at the end of the job, which is part of the haze removal process, the buffing process. Then we have a Doodlebug handheld pad holder. Same thing, you attach the white scotch brite, and it allows you to agitate the tiles by hand. And if you were to not choose these items, you could just take the white pad and do it on your own. A large yellow applicator brush. With your kit, you get a small applicator brush. It's just a matter of preference. Some people prefer the larger one, others prefer the smaller one. And a metal tip applicator. Typically with the kit, you get a Yorker top, which is all plastic. What happens is when you're rubbing the plastic onto the grout, the tip of it ends up wearing and getting clogged, so you're required to clean it out, and it just takes a little bit longer to do the job because you're ending up having to fuss around with the tip, versus this metal tip does not wear, so they'll save you some aggravation. Either way is fine. And then a triangle grout scrub brush. It has threads, so you can put a broom handle in at this angle, or straight away, or it can be used by hand. These are all items, if you have access to locally, that's great, or they can also be ordered online on our website. Obviously, knee pads will just help cushion your knees as you're working and color sealing the tile and the grout. Now, another optional item is a shop vac. You could typically use a mop or the shop vac. If you have access to a shop vac, I think it does a little bit of a better job and it's a little bit easier on yourself. But basically this is used after you apply the deep cleaner, step 1, and you scrub the floor. This is used to extract all the cleaner and dirt off the floor. And then again, at the end of the job, it can be used to extract the haze after the buffing process. And that will all be explained a little bit later. So for extraction, you can use a mop or a shop vac. One of the first steps of this is to determine whether there are any waxes or sealers or heavy coatings on the floor. In a residential setting, typically you're not going to find any waxes or sealers, but it doesn't hurt to test it. So in order to test the porosity of the grout, one way to do it is just to take some water and pour it on the grout line, and you'll see the grout getting darker. Once you've tested the grout for any film formers, waxes, sealers, coatings that are on the grout, the next step is to take step 1, deep cleaner, and pour it into your mop bucket. Obviously, it's important to follow the instructions. Typically, you will get an 8-ounce bottle or 16-ounce bottle, which is the amount required to do the size of your job. But one other factor to take into account is if we identify that there is a wax or a sealer on the floor, it's very important to follow the heavy dilution instructions on the label. For all other cleanings, you could use the normal cleaning dilution ratio. So we're going to take our 16 ounces, which is the appropriate amount for this floor, and it's poured into our mop bucket of water. So you apply the solution down with the mop. One important thing, especially if you're stripping a coating, is to allow a little bit more dwell time based on however the instructions are on the bottle. Once the solution's been applied, there's no need to kill yourself and scrub really hard, but as long as you scrub each grout line to this degree, it's good enough. I like going one line at a time, just because this way you won't miss anything. A lot of times if you're going in this direction, and this direction, and this direction, you miss spots. So the best thing to do is do all the lines going one way. All the dirt that we've agitated is suspended in the water. And now the goal is to extract the water with the dirt in it. And that's the reason that we want to keep the floor wet. You can do this with a dry mop. So mop it up and rinse it out. Or with a wet vac, which I prefer and I think is better. So all we're going to do now is extract this with a wet vac. Step 3, which is to color seal the area. It's okay to start color sealing immediately after you've cleaned. You just have to make sure that there are no puddles in the grout. If the grout's a little bit damp, that's fine. You can maybe just wipe some puddles out with a towel or something. But if the grout's a little bit damp, it's no big deal. So the steps involved to more or less prep yourself before we begin to color seal is to, if you have a metal applicator tip or the Yorker, attach it to your product. Included in your do-it-yourself package is a Yorker top. This is used to apply a bead of product to the grout. All you need to do is snip the edge. Don't make too big of a hole. Just above the little perforation is perfect. And if you choose to use the Yorker top, that's all that needs to be done, and you screw it onto the bottle. I'm going to use the metal tip. So now the product is ready to use. If you have both brushes, you could try each one and see what you prefer. Typically, this is the brush that comes with the package, the do-it-yourself package. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. And depending on the size of the package you've purchased, you'll either get 1 or 2 chamois sheets. Whether it's 1 or 2, each piece needs to be cut into 4 equal sections. So I'll go ahead and do that. So 1 chamois will translate into 4. Here I have a clean bucket of water, and all I'm going to do is soak my chamois in the water. And then I'm going to take them and fold them into 4 equal sections. And I'm going to make a big pile of chamois. As many chamois as you have, they should all be cut up and put in a pile, because you'll see the more chamois you have, the less time you spend rinsing and cleaning them. and you'll have a better understanding of that once we actually begin the coloring process. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold all these, and once that's done, we're ready to pick a starting point. Now we're ready to color seal. We've cut our chamois, they're all wet, we have them in a pile, we have our applicator brush, we have the applicator tip on, and we have our color. So step one of the application process is just to apply a bead of product. Obviously in the beginning you just need to work it a little bit to get it going, and work in areas that you're comfortable with. The more you do, the more comfortable you may get. You may be able to do a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and apply a bead to 2 lines. And if you notice, I'm not putting a lot of product down, because if you put too much product down, you end up creating a mess, and then you'll have to wipe, do a lot more work wiping and buffing the haze off the tile. One very important thing is not to allow the product to dry. So I've applied it, I've spread it, and now I'm going to take my wet chamois and I'm going to hold them flat. And I'm going to pretend like the grout line's not even there. I'm just going to wipe. Okay? So you can see that the chamois is picking everything off the tile. I'm holding the chamois very flat, and there you go. And I gave it a final wipe, like a clean wipe with the clean part of the chamois. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this one and wipe this off. Do another wipe, a final clean wipe with the clean part of the chamois. Another thing to keep in mind, as you're doing areas, there are going to be joints that are high, some that are low, and if you happen to remove a little bit of product or it looks a little splotchy, don't worry about it. It's easier just to finish the job and then come back and touch up. Okay, so one other thing you want to keep in mind is when your chamois get dirty, I mean this is not dirty, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway, I open them up and I put them in a bucket of water. So while you're working, they're being rinsed and cleaned, so when you come back to reuse them, they'll be cleaner. I'm going to go ahead and give these a final wipe, and I'm going to move on to the next area. As you noticed, I'm doing all lines in one direction. Now we've completed an area in both directions. Obviously, when you're doing this at home, it's best to wait maybe 10 to 20 minutes, or at least until the product is dry to the touch. And the neater you do the job, the less haze and cleanup there will be. So you can see this is a little bit wet. So you just take the area, small section at a time, and then dry buff it. And you can see it's picking up the haze. So you just repeat this until the haze is gone. Option 2 for removing haze off the tile is to give it a light mopping, not a real heavy mopping, just sort of replacing using the terry cloth. Then taking a Scotch Brite pad on the handheld holder. And what this is doing is loosening and suspending all the haze in the water. And you can see. Or if you don't want to use the handheld, you could do it in a standing position. And then the final step is to take your terry cloths and just wipe it dry. Just wipe the whole area dry, repeating as needed until the haze is gone. If you leave a little haze on the floor, it's not that big a deal because over time it will clean up with your day-to-day cleanings. Option 3 for the buffing process is a very, very heavy mopping, getting it very wet. The reason for this is we're going to be extracting it with the wet vac. So it's going to be easier and more effective than trying to wipe big puddles with a terry cloth. So get this nice and wet. Take your doodle pad. You could do this obviously by hand with the handheld or in the upright one here. Just give it a very good scrub and suspend everything into the water. Doing it in very small sections at a time. Take your wet vac and extract. Just to be able to utilize your chamois and so that they don't go bad. You know, as we've been coloring, we've been putting them in a bucket of water, and all you really need to do is rinse them out really well, and you can see that they clean up. You just don't want heavy globs of the ColorSeal drying in them, then they won't be reusable. But even if they're a little bit discolored like this, and they're rinsed, you can just leave them around the bucket, let them dry, and you could use them over and over. Just a helpful hint on the chamois.